Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Fire Emblem 3 Houses Only Love Can Hurt Like This Part 1 in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 86, Word of the Day. Ah. Petra. I have been searching for you. He reached down to her and offered his hand. I did not mean to knock you over, I apologize. Are you all right? I am all right. She smiled delicately and grabbed his hand, pulling herself to her feet. She lingered in his hand for a while before releasing him. I'm sorry for bumping into you. He didn't mind that she held his hand for so long. He actually wished she didn't let go. He shook his head. No need for apologies, but I accept nonetheless. He gave her a smile. Are you ready for the word of the day? He asked, seeming excited to tell her. Oh yes, I am. I have been waiting for so long. She clapped her hands, and sat down at a table in the library. Tell me. Ferdinand walked over with her and sat across from her at the table, leaning forward slightly. All right. Are you ready? Today's word is, he paused for dramatic effect, and then said, coalesce. He smiled. Any guesses as to what it means? Coalesce, she thought for a moment. Maybe, is it meaning to swim, she asked, moving her arms in a swimming motion. Or something having to do with swim. A good guess, but it has nothing to do with swimming. His smile remained. Coalesce means, to unite into a whole. He gave her a dreamy look, and he reached across the table and gently took her hand. Or to join forces. He released her hand after a little while. A beautiful word, is it not? She blushed, staring at the spot across the table where their hands had met. Beautiful, yes. She smiled. She took a small notepad out of her pocket, which had a pencil and string attached. She scribbled some words down on the page, then put it back into her pocket. I am sure you will find some way to make use of this word today. There is always an excuse to use beautiful diction, is there not? He said, the words a person chooses are like a window to their soul. You can tell a lot about a person from their word choice. Do you think so? Well, I am thinking that you are being beautiful, Ferdinand, because you are using very beautiful words. She smiled happily at him. Ah, why, thank you. He blushed from her compliment, wanting to reach across the table and grab her hands again, but he maintained self-restraint. I am honored to hear that you think I am beautiful. I mean, I know it is true, but to hear it from you? You are a very sincere person, Petra. I know you mean what you say. Thank you. Yes, I strive to, she struggled for a bit, I strive to be telling the truth. In all I am doing, she said with a small nod. Lying is not something my heart is valuing. I admire that about you, Petra. Truly. I wish there were more people like you, so direct, intelligent, and beautiful. The world could use more Petras. He laughed. She laughed. Oh, that is good. I think the world could use more Ferdinands, she said, smiling brightly. I have been meaning to ask. Is your foot okay? Ah, but here is the rub, the world can only handle one Ferdinand. And that is I, Ferdinand von Aegir, he proudly said, still beaming. Her question distracted him, though. Oh? My foot? Yes, actually it feels fine today. I made sure to treat the wound with care. I wrapped it and used some antibiotic ointment just to be sure. I am feeling so much happiness that you are having no pain, she exclaimed. Will it be okay for the battle, commence next week? I'm not knowing if I am using that word correctly. She frowned. Oh, in that instance you would say, will your foot be okay for the battle that will commence next week? He said, but to answer your question, yes. I will be just fine. No need to worry. He gave her a reassuring look. Ah, good. She nodded. I am having a bit of nerves for the battle, she admitted. It is unlike me. But the professors are all saying it is going to be dangerous. More than our usual battles. She sighed. Well, we will possibly face up against the Almiran army, which is no easy task, even with strong units like me and you fighting for Fodlan, he explained. So we have to be ready for anything. She sighed heavily. For my freedom from the Empire, she said quietly, I will be fighting my hardest. She looked at him sadly. And for you? I will be fighting for you as well, Petra. Perhaps, we might help assure victory for Fodlan if we fight side by side. A coalescence of our skills would surely send the Amirans fleeing back across Fodlan's throat. Yes. I will be the sword at your side, Petra said with a small nod. Ferdinand? There is something I am needing to tell you. Will you promise not to be telling our classmates? Your shield, he declared, smiling, but a look of concern spread across his face instead when she asked her question. You may confide in me, you have my full trust. I am called a hostage of the Empire, she said quietly. I am being sent as a bargaining chip, they are calling it, to secure ties with Bridget and the Empire, she said sadly. I was not choosing to come here. But, you are making it not so bad. She finished, speaking low. Petra, he stared back at her for a moment before saying anything else. This time, he did reach back across the table and take her hands. I am sorry about your situation. I cannot imagine how difficult it must be for you to face all of this. When you first arrived, you were probably so confused. You knew nothing of Fodlan language or culture, arriving in a new, unfamiliar place is frightening. He said, but, you were brave, and you faced it head on. Your journey to the Empire was probably hard, but look how much stronger you have become as a result of it. And, if I can make things easier and happier for you, then even better. Ferdinand was so sweet, Petra was happy to have someone like him around to make her time at school better. Petra smiled at him. Thank you, Ferdinand. I will be holding all we have done together in my heart. Even if I am able to be returning to Bridget, she said happily. And you are teaching me many new things. My heart is full of gratitude for everything you have been showing me. She squeezed his hand. There was a small triangle-shaped mark on the back of her hand that he was holding. He couldn't help but notice the mark on her hand, wondering what it was for. He noticed that she had a lot of interesting markings on her body from when they were in the hot springs, but he didn't have time to ask about them that night because of the attack. What is this? He asked, letting go of her hand. He tapped the back of her hand with his finger. And, if it is okay to ask, what is the meaning behind all of your markings? Do not be afraid to ask. I love to be talking about my culture. She smiled. She pointed to the markings on her face. These are signs of strength, and prayers to the nature spirits of Bridget, she explained. She pointed to the one on her hand. In Bridget, this symbol is meaning love and security. After you had given me a kiss on the hand, I added this marking onto my skin. She blushed, looking up at him with her eyes. He listened with great interest, nodding every now and then to show that he was enjoying her explanations. Nature spirits. Fascinating. I would love to hear more about that, he said, but when she mentioned the triangle on her hand, he blushed again. Oh, so he paused. You added that marking because of me? Well, that certainly is kind of you. To know that my polite gesture has been amplified to mean so much more is, quite beguiling. He met her eyes. She looked back at him, smiling slightly. Yes. I am having strong feelings when I am around you. I wanted to remember these moments, when I return home, she said again. And this will help me to never be forgetting. That is, actually rather romantic of you, Petra. He smiled, looking down at the table where their hands were. I have strong feelings around you, too. He looked up at her. She giggled. Then let us be making a promise to each other, okay? We will both make it out of this fight without without injury. I promise to make it out of this fight unharmed for your sake, Petra. I will not sustain even the smallest of scratches. My armor may suffer a new nicks, but underneath all of that I will be safe and sound from whatever war my being. She nodded her head, and stood up from the table. Next week is beginning in 3 days. I hope we are all able to prepare for the attack, she said. Prince Shahid can very well destroy our ranks in an instant. He is surely not to be trifled with. I will not make the mistake of challenging him head on, if I can help it. I do think I would be able to beat him in one-on-one combat, but, he trailed off. Maybe if we go together, she offered, pushing her chair in. We can take him. I am sure of it. She nodded. Ah, but I must be going. Dorothea and I have to train with one another. Maybe, he said, and he was going to say more, but she expressed that she had to go, and he couldn't finish his sentence. Well, have a good training session. I am certain you will learn a lot from one another. He smiled, then stood up. I will see you tomorrow for your next word of the day, yes. Yes. Petra exclaimed. Though. I cannot be meeting until the evening, she explained, not knowing that he had a date set up at that time. Is that all right? Oh. I actually have a prior arrangement that I must attend to. You know what? Why don't I just write it out for you? I can slip the note right under your door, if that works out. He was a little sad that he wouldn't get to see her. She was obviously sad about it as well. Oh. Yes. I have understanding. She nodded. But then, the day after that is going to be the battle. We can meet up before the battle, if you would prefer. Or, we could walk there together, and I could give you your word of the day as we march. Yes. That is sounding, suit. She frowned. Suited. She sighed, putting her face in her hands. I cannot remember how to say that. You could say, that sounds good. That is just a simple way of saying things. He nodded. Then I shall see you before the march. Okay. She nodded back to him. Thank you, Ferdinand. Farewell. She waved to him, and exited the library. Ferdinand waved as well. You are most welcome. I will see you later. I am wishing you the best. He nodded, then let out a sigh. He wished he could cancel plans with Constance, but that would be rude. Chapter 87, Big Brother. Hilda hadn't been seen for a while. Casper was too afraid to go find Hilda himself since Holst almost beat him up for being her boyfriend. He never really sought her out on his own, he just sort of looked to see if she was around as he walked through campus. There was a knock on Hilda's door later that day. Holst. Hilda's voice came quietly from behind the door. She pressed her ear to the door and listened for whoever was there. It was Linhard. Nope. Not Holst. Just me, Linhard. May I have a word? He asked through a yawn. He wondered why she seemed so nervous. Linhard. Her voice sounded confused. Yes, you may. She sighed, but still didn't open the door. What is it that you want to talk about? You know, it would be easier if you opened the door so I could actually hear you. Unless you have a good reason to keep it closed, I don't feel like putting in the extra effort to talk louder through the door. She pulled on the door. It didn't open. The lock on her door seemed to have been flipped around. I can't, she said, pressing her forehead against the door. I can't open it. I'm sorry. Wait, what? Are you locked inside? He gave the door a little push, then turned the handle of the door, which was locked. Are you trapped inside? He asked, sounding concerned. Yes, she said quietly. But never mind that. Please. She sighed. Can you tell me what you came here to talk to me about? Okay. Well, I'm here on Casper's behalf. He wanted me to ask how you've been. You see, he's too afraid to come here himself because your brother threatened him after finding out you two were a couple. He frowned, having said those words aloud just made him a little sad. Wait, really? He's thinking about me? I've been wondering where he's been, she said with a small sigh. Tell him I'm fine. Please. It was easy to tell from her voice though that it was a lie. All right. I'll tell him that you're fine. Oh, and I won't leave out the fact that you're locked in your room and can't seem to get out. He paused. Goodbye. He started walking away. Thank you, Linhard, she called out, pressing her hand against the door. She was a little upset that he didn't even ask her if there was a way to get her out, but she figured he didn't care enough. About 20 minutes passed. Suddenly, there was a huge bang against Hilda's door. It was followed by a grunt, and then there was an even louder bang. There was another pause, some heavy breathing, and then another huge bang followed by the sound of someone falling. What the? Stop! Hilda shouted, putting her hands on the door. Is there an intruder? What's going on? She exclaimed. I'm coming. Casper shouted, backing up. His voice sounded a little farther from the door. Hilda! Back away from the door. I repeat, back away from the door. He waited a few seconds, then charged straight at the door. Urayak! He slammed his whole body up against it, which really hurt, but he was hoping it would break open. See, Casper, stop. You're gonna hurt yourself. The door was splintering slightly though. Casper, she shouted again. She backed up. There was some silence after he bashed the door, and then a quiet ow. He said, Linhard told me you were trapped. The least I can do is break you out of there. He rubbed his arm, then started repeatedly kicking the door. Damn. This door is strong. Okay. I'm gonna give it the ol Casper try one more time. He backed up, revved, and then charged at the door again. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr before he hit the door, he was snatched up by his collar. Holst was there, dangling him in the air like a little kitten. He didn't say anything, he just stared at him. He had a tray of dinner foods in his other hand. Whoa! I really caught some air. Casper stopped talking and just dangled from Holst's grip. Oh, his voice turned a little high-pitched. Just getting in some last-minute training before the fight, against this door. He said, oh? Is this Hilda's door? Whoops. I thought it was just some random door. Haha. What's for dinner? Hilda was silent. She already knew what had happened. Holst spoke through gritted teeth. What did I tell you about going near my sister? He said, I'm trying to keep her safe. Shahid could attack at any moment. You locked her up. Holst. Are you crazy? She's gonna go insane if she can't get some fresh air. He struggled. Put me down. He said, this isn't fair. Would you just stop? Holst shouted, setting Casper down on the ground. I can't have her dying. I can't, he explained to Casper. You think I'd let her die either? What's locking her up in her room gonna do? It's only gonna make her unprepared for the things that could happen outside of her room. So let her out. He did a little stomp. I'll let her out once Shahid has been defeated, he told Casper. Until then. Stay away from my sister. He paused. Do I make myself clear? Fine. Then I guess I'll just take on Shahid to myself to prove to you that I'm a strong man. And that you don't have to worry about me hanging around your sister, he replied, angry. Nuh-uh. None of you students are gonna take him on. That's a job for the adults, he told Casper. Hilda sniffled. Holst, please. Let me out. Just let me see Casper once. Holst looked so guilty. I may not be an adult, but I could sure take on any one of them and win. With my bare fists. Casper exclaimed. Kman. If you're so stubborn, why don't we just duke it out like real men? Huh. Maybe if I can prove that I'm strong enough, you'll let me see my girlfriend again. I don't care. I'm strong enough to protect her, and I'm keeping her locked in there until the battle is over, he explained. After. When it's all over, then you and I will duel. Well, so am I. Are you calling me weak? I am not weak. I am strong. He looked at the door. Come on, Hilda. Tell him I'm strong, he begged her. Holst didn't let Hilda reply. Stop. She is not coming out until the battle is over, he said again. End of discussion. Okay, fine. But I'm not happy about it, and neither is she. Casper started walking away, doing a stupid little whistle as he walked past Holst, but then he suddenly lunged at Holst and grabbed onto his leg. Run, Hilda, run. What? What's happening? Hilda hit the door a few times. Holst just stared down at him. Come on, kid, give it up. He was trying so hard not to laugh at him. The door is almost broken, you can get out, I'll slow him down. He shook Holst's leg like it would do something to slow him down. Holst easily pried Casper off of his leg. Kid, stop. Please. He kinda found it honorable, how dedicated Casper was to helping Hilda. Hilda pleaded, "Casper, stop." Casper was breathing hard even though he basically didn't do anything. You're very sturdy. But if Hilda took the chance to run I would've slowed you down for sure. He said, "I don't give up. Especially on people who I really like." Holst said, "Look, you and I will have a little chat after the battle, alright?" "I promise." He nodded his head slightly. "Just back off for now. Leave her in there." "No. We're gonna have a little. No, a big chat right now. Because I said so. You're not letting Hilda live her life. What kind of person are you? You're like, stealing all of the life experience from her. It's such a beautiful day outside and Hilda can't even enjoy it cause she's stuck in here. At least let her out for a little bit." He said, "I don't care whether you're her brother or not. I know she doesn't like this one bit." Hilda smiled, pressing her ear up against the door. Holst sighed. "Okay, I don't want to kill your little dreams, but I'm sticking to my word." "That's all you have to say? What's with you?" He let out a little growl. "I don't let anyone kill my dreams. I fight anyone who stands in the way of that. And you know what? I'm gonna fight for Hilda's dreams too." "Stop. I'm too worried about her. She's not coming out until after the fight." End of discussion. He opened Hilda's door and handed her the tray of food. Hilda's face looked so sad. She made eye contact with Casper for about 2 seconds before the door was closed and locked again. Casper was angry when she made eye contact with him, but he wasn't angry at her, obviously. He whipped his head around to look at Holst again. "You won't even let her out to eat? Or drink? Or pee, probably even. I bring her everything she needs." He pointed at Casper. "Stop acting like you own her. Because you don't." He looked away, huffing out a deep breath before walking past Casper. "I don't own her. That's not what being a couple is all about. It's not about owning the other, it's about protecting them. And, if I have to protect her from her own brother, then I will." Holst spun around and faced him. "You better shut your mouth if you know what's good for you, boy," he said. "I am keeping her safe. As soon as the battle is done, she's coming back out. Do not accuse me of being the villain here. I never said you were the villain. I'm only saying that you're not doing the right thing. And I'm gonna stand up for the right thing. Linhard says all the time that I'm relentless. I always thought of it as a bad thing, but now I get why it comes in handy. Times like these. Let her out." "No," Holst said quietly. "No. She is staying in there. No buts. Use this time away from her to get stronger. You're gonna have to if you want to beat me. I can beat you now. And I will." Casper charged at Holst again, even though it was pretty much obvious that he wouldn't be able to do anything against him. Holst put his hand on Casper's forehead so that he couldn't come any closer. "You're embarrassing yourself, Casper. Stop this." He pushed him away, then continued walking. Casper did a pathetic little struggle. He pouted after Holst left. "Humph. I'll show him one way or another." He waited until Holst was gone, then made his way back to Hilda's door. Before I go, I just wanna say sorry." "That's okay, Casper. Thank you for trying," Hilda said with a small sigh. "Hey. I know Holst means well. I'll be safer in here," she said to him. "I'll see you after the battle. I guess. But I still don't agree with it. If anything, I'm gonna do all I can to prove myself to him. I've got nothing to lose." He put his hand on the door. "Hang in there, Hilda. I'll come find you as soon as the battle is over. Promise." "Thank you, Casper. I know you will," she said. "I'll be waiting." She shuffled back over to her desk, and started eating her meal. Casper sighed, then started marching away to his room. He opened the door so hard that a few things shook, and then he slammed it. But, immediately after he slammed it, he just opened it again and ran off somewhere or the other. Bernadetta was about to leave her room for dinner but heard Casper's racket from upstairs and got too scared and didn't go anywhere. Chapter 88, Eventful Day. There was a knock on Claude's door after it got really late. Claude was so stressed, he was still awake. He opened the door. Edelgard was standing there. "Hello. I wish to speak with you, if you have the time," she requested. "Me? Okay. It's so late, what do you want?" He still let Edelgard into his room, though. She stepped inside. "I would like to request that we work together in tomorrow's fight. And by that, I mean that I'd like to strategize with you." "Okay. I thought we were all already working together," he said with a small frown. "What do you mean?" "I want to come up with a strategy that the two of us can implement. I believe that you and I could be capable partners on the battlefield, if we tried. I feel as though we haven't been putting in as much effort as we should to secure relations between our houses, and ultimately our nations." Claude raised her eyebrows. "Look, no offense, but you never really come to me for anything. Why all of a sudden should I talk to you about this stuff?" He frowned. "Fight like your life depends on it, because it does. That's all. I have my own plans. So you're going to leave me on my own? Believe me, I can handle my own battles, but aid never hurts." She paused. "I know you were conspiring with Dmitri the other night. Do you mean to leave me out of whatever your plan is?" "What? No, we weren't. And it wasn't even a plan, we were just hanging out," he said. "And what are you even talking about? All of us are going into this battle together. There's really no plans to be made. I wanted to secure the alliance's trust. You never know what the future may bring. I thought that, by constructing a plan with you, we could start off on the right foot. Remain on the same page," she said. "To safeguard the future of Fodlan. Okay, well, first off, we need to save the alliance from Shahid. After that, we'll talk. Deal?" Claude folded his arms, looking down on her. "If you're so reluctant to talk, I will spend no more time here." She opened the door to leave, but walked straight into Dmitri. They both stared at each other for a little while. She turned around to face Claude. "And I'm sure you wouldn't reject an offer from him to create plans for the upcoming battle?" "No. We're dating. That's why he's been coming here a lot," Claude said, biting his cheek to get himself to stop laughing at his own joke. He didn't know if Edelgard would believe him or not. Edelgard froze, just staring between the two of them. Dmitri looked humiliated. "I see, that explains the odd hours. But you two should know better, you are to be the rulers of separate nations. Lest someone was to unify all of Fodlan." She shrugged, then noticed Claude's attempt to hold back laughter and narrowed her eyes at him. "Is this some sort of joke?" Claude bursted out laughing. "You fell for it, Ha. I'm sorry, the look on your face was priceless." He slapped his knee, he thought it was so funny. Edelgard didn't seem amused. "That wasn't a very funny joke. I was going to use the situation as a teachable moment if it were true, but now I see that you lack the maturity to talk about such matters. If you'll excuse me." She walked past Dmitri, who was avoiding looking at her on purpose. Claude thought her weird speech after was even funnier. It was hard for him to stop laughing. He closed the door behind Edelgard and looked at Dmitri. Sorry about that." He blew out a breath to steady himself. "What's up?" Dmitri walked in. "Did you have to say that? You know how flustered those jokes of yours make me," he said, setting something on Claude's desk. "I've just come to check on you. I thought you might be looking for some comfort before our upcoming fight." Sorry, I'll stop," Claude said. "But anyways, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it." He looked to see what Dmitri had put on the desk. "I brought you some cheese. And before you comment on the strange choice of gift, it's from a merchant I saw in town selling rare goods. This cheese is supposed to be the best in all of Fodlan," he said, "just a thoughtful gift to diminish your worries." "Cheese!" Claude exclaimed and unwrapped some of it. He took a small bite. "Whoa! This is good," he exclaimed. "You didn't have to bring me cheese." He laughed. "Thanks, though. I'll eat it for sure. I was going to keep it for myself, but I knew you would enjoy it more than I." He smiled a little at Claude's reaction to his gift. Don't eat too much this late at night, you might have difficulties getting to sleep, if so. Oh right. My bad. He wrapped it back up. And you have a point, we probably should go to bed, he said. I have a big day tomorrow. His mood changed slightly. I'm nervous too. I understand that there's a lot at stake for you, and it feels so selfish to be this nervous, but, after the fight against Solon, Dmitri shook his head. That fight, it was too close. We have every right to be nervous. But I'm not backing down, Dmitri. I can't. He shook his head. We're gonna win. We have to. He flopped down on his bed. Well, you have my support. Dmitri looked at him for a moment, then diverted his attention. He was about to say something, then shook his head. No, never mind. I should be going. This is a talk for another time, not now. Claude sat up in bed. Okay, no, you can't just say that and then stop talking, he said, looking at him. Tell me, and then you can go. No. It's trivial, really. It will be a waste of time. Why talk about this when we could be talking about more important matters, such as the battle at hand? Dmitri sighed, shaking his head. It's foolish. Really? So? We don't need to talk about boring, serious things all the time, he said with a small shrug. So again, what was it you had to say? Dmitri looked at Claude, debating on whether or not he wanted to start the conversation. Well, he started, I took Ingrid into town the other day. We carved our names into the bridge. He said, it was a swell time, but I fear my intentions for bringing her with me were misleading. He was almost too embarrassed to tell Claude about it. She kissed me. And he didn't finish. Whoa, Dmitri. Claude raised his eyebrows. I mean, you guys carved your names on the bridge, I don't blame her for kissing you. What were you thinking? Bringing her there if you don't like her that way? I just meant it as a symbolic way of securing our future as the king and his most trusted knight, not in a romantic way. Does a binding of futures always have to be about affairs of the heart? I didn't think it did, but I'm pretty sure this whole thing is my fault. I feel bad about misleading her, and I haven't told anyone but you about me and Didu. He sort of hinted at it to Felix, but that didn't count. That's not the only thing that's worrying me, though. Okay. What else is there that's bothering you about that? I mean, if I were you, I would tell her the truth. Honestly. I wouldn't want to hurt her feelings though, Claude said. I saw Glenn. I mean, at the bridge, Dmitri took a deep breath. He seemed happy that I was with her and making her dream a reality. I never acknowledged him the whole time I was there, but, after Ingrid kissed me, I heard him. He told me, you've made her happy. Happier than she's been since my departure. This is how things ought to be. And, those words are sticking with me. Oh geez. Dmitri, Claude stood up from the bed, a sad look on his face. He wasn't expecting the conversation to take such a sharp turn, but with Dmitri, that was to be expected. Come here, Claude walked forward and pulled Dmitri into a hug. Listen to me, that isn't real. None of it is. I promise, he spoke softly. Dmitri needed a hug badly, since he wasn't able to hug Didu recently due to his cold. Believe me. I've tried to tell myself this is all in my head since the moment it started, and I've come to terms with it. Yes, Claude. All of this is happening in my head, so, these must be figments of my real thoughts and feelings, right? He sounded conflicted. No. That's not it at all. These are thoughts you can't control. Claude squeezed him tighter. Yes, maybe you're making Ingrid happy. It's true, but it's not making you happy. Don't listen to untrue thoughts, he said quietly. But I will be unhappy if I tell Ingrid the truth, because in turn, I will break her heart. Dmitri said, Didu is everything to me. I've already decided that I want to spend the rest of my life with him. But Ingrid? She is so near and dear to my heart. And telling her the truth would not only break her heart, but mine as well. I don't know the best course of action. I do. You need to spend your life with Didu. Ingrid, she'll always be your friend, and closest protector, Claude assured him. Explain your feelings to Ingrid. He pulled out of the hug. She'll understand. Do I tell her about Didu? Or do I keep that to myself? I feel that if she knows I am already loyal to another, it will make my rejection less harsh, Dmitri said. Yes. I think you should tell her. That is, if you think she'd be accepting. Claude added, unlike Cyril. He paused. Okay, that last part was a joke, I'm sorry, kinda insensitive. I am aware of Cyril's tendencies. Although, I'd almost like to expose him to what he fears. It might coax some acceptance from him in the future, who knows? Dmitri sighed. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate you listening to my rather small-scale problems. At least, in comparison to something like a battle between Almira and Fodlan. I'll tell you how things go, as usual. Claude nodded. Yeah. I'm kinda too focused on the battle tomorrow to think of anything else. Really? I'm sorry, he said with a small sigh. That's okay. In all honesty, that's why I was hesitant to bring up my own problems. Dmitri paused. Would it help if I camped out on your floor, he offered, kindly. I wouldn't mind. Really? You want to? I mean, yeah. Claude was enthusiastic about it. Definitely. I'd appreciate it. He climbed back into his own bed. Dmitri took a spare blanket and spread it out on the ground. In that case, I will be down here if you need me. He sat down on it, bunching it up a little to make a spot to lay his head. A little company always makes falling asleep easier when you have a lot on your mind, don't you think? Here. Claude tossed a spare pillow down, and it smacked Dmitri in the face. Oh, sorry. He laughed. My bad. Claude laid down on his side, looking at Dmitri. Thanks for doing this. Dmitri wasn't expecting that. Oh, now what was that for? He turned and looked at Claude, but was glad to hear him laughing after knowing he was so worried. I didn't think we'd be horsing around. I'm not in the mood for a pillow fight. We have enough fighting in our near future, wouldn't you say? He took the pillow and fluffed it before laying his head down. You're welcome. I am always happy to help out, especially when it comes to you. Claude smiled, but he didn't say anything else. He just stared at the wall for a while, before turning away and actually falling asleep. The next morning came, and everyone was going crazy making preparations for the battle. There was a note slipped under Petra's door. Petra accidentally stepped on the note as she was leaving her room. Oh. She mumbled, bending down to pick it up. She opened it. Word of the day, fidelity. The quality of being faithful to a country, or to someone such as a spouse. How you would use this word, since I am to be the next Duke Agir, my fidelity to the Empire is strong. However, should the course of my life sweep me away to Brigid, my fidelity would lie with the Queen. There was a neat little heart drawn at the bottom of the note. Petra smiled and pressed the note to her heart. She folded it up neatly before setting it down on her desk, next to her little pocketbook she used to write down the definitions. She left to do her chores shortly afterwards. There was a small knock on the infirmary door. Cyril walked in shortly after. His face was all bandaged up. He marched over and stood beside Sylvain's bed, just staring at him. Sylvain looked at Cyril when he walked in. You've gotta be kidding me, he muttered before Cyril could get close enough to hear him say it. He looked at Cyril with his eyebrows raised. Can I help you? He said, sounding a little irritated. Yes. Actually. You can. Cyril folded his little arms. Keep that dog of yours in check. Cyril said, stomping his foot. He attacked my face. He wailed. I don't know what you're talking about. Sylvain shook his head, obviously lying. If you're worried about getting beat up, then maybe you shouldn't go provoking him? Ever think of that? I didn't. I was talking about how sad I was to hear about what happened to you. Cyril lied. And then he did this to me. Oh really? Then why don't you tell me how sad you are about this, huh? Sylvain looked back at Cyril, unamused. It will be more sincere coming from you rather than hearing Felix tell me what you said. Go on, tell me how sad you are. I'm sad, I don't know. Cyril shrugged, looking away from Sylvain. Whatever, that's not the point. Make him apologize. Cyril begged. Wow. You really meant that, didn't you? Look, Cyril. I don't have time for this. If you're gonna come in here and beg for forgiveness that you don't deserve, it's just gonna make me more reluctant to give it to you. Sylvain paused. I'm kinda surprised you're here, though. The longer you stand next to me, the more my gayness might rub off on you. Just saying. Cyril gasped loudly. What? That's a thing. He screeched. Felix he touched me. He touched my face. He narrowed his eyes. Why, you're kidding. He got all whiny and embarrassed. Stoop. He turned and ran out of the room. Yep. That's a thing. How else do you think it happened to me? And now I'm gonna spread it to everyone else. Including you. Sylvain couldn't help but laugh when Cyril got offended by that because it was so stupid. Bye, Cyril. Good luck finding a boyfriend. He sighed, then rubbed his forehead. Damn, his screeching is annoying. He closed his eyes and laid his head down more comfortably. Very shortly after, Dorothea ended up walking in. Sylvain. She spoke quietly. Let me know if this is a bad time. Sylvain opened his eyes when he heard her voice, not expecting her to walk in. Oh, hey, Dorothea. You're looking nice today. He sat up a little straighter, wincing a bit as he situated. Not a bad time at all. Did you have something you wanted to talk to me about? Although he was trying to seem upbeat, he couldn't completely hide his misery. He looked a little off. She sat down beside his bed, a sad look on her face. I'm sorry, I just need to talk to you. She said, you don't have to answer if this is too new for you. But, what compelled you to do such a thing? She shook her head. At this point, Sylvain stopped trying to hide any sign of weakness. He immediately looked sad when she asked the question. Oh, he took a long pause, not answering her at first. He shook his head a little, unable to keep going. I'm sorry. I don't know if I should say anything, he looked back at her. If I tell you, I don't want to hear that you told anyone. I don't want people talking about this, so. I understand. But, you know you can trust me. I have kept all of your secrets thus far, she said quietly. Ingrid has just been beside herself with worry over you she looked upwards, counting in her head. Who knows how long? She hasn't been talking with me. I have a speculation it's due to you. Sylvain covered his face with his hands. Great. Of course I went and made the worst decision of my life without thinking, and now it's affecting everybody, he let out a big sigh. Dorothea, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to take Ingrid away from you. Next time I see her, I'll remind her to drop by and see how you're doing. I at least owe you that. No. No, it's not your fault, Sylvain. I'm being selfish. That wasn't my intention. I genuinely came to see how you are doing, she admitted. And Ignatz told me to ask you if it's okay that Marianne stops by. She wants to chat with you, but doesn't think you'll want to see her. Marianne, he gave Dorothea a sad look. Why would, oh. Yes. I understand, well, let her know she could never be a bother, okay? I'll have a chat with her as soon as she's able to. He paused. But, anyway. I'm avoiding the question. I know I can trust you, you've proved trustworthy, anyway. I understand. But I don't want to push anything. She stood back up. I have this for you. She set a small rose on his bedside table. Maybe, if time allows, and if I survive tomorrow's battle, you can explain things to me another day. Sylvain admired the rose for a little while. Thanks. That really livens things up in here. He stared at it a bit longer before switching his gaze back to her. I think I need some time before I'll be ready to talk about something like this with you. If that's okay. I promise you'll get your answer. Just, not right now. 'Kay. She smiled slightly. Again, I understand. She felt bad, but in all honesty, she was just trying to get to the bottom of this in an attempt to get through to Ingrid. She waved to him. Goodbye, Sylvain. Stay safe during the battle. She walked out. See ya. You stay safe too, alright. He moved his arm up instead of a wave, then dropped his hand back down with a sigh. He laid there with his eyes closed for a while, then just started crying and turned over onto his side so that anybody coming into the room wouldn't be able to tell. Chapter 89, I Still Want to Die. That night, Constance was waiting patiently near her room in Abyss. She had on a gown, pearl jewelry, and had extra curls in her hair and a new style of makeup. She had been looking forward to this night. Ferdinand had never been to Abyss before. He walked down the secret passage that led there, wearily looking around as he went. There were some shady-looking characters following him, but he didn't make a big deal out of it. He just kept facing forward and headed to his destination. He looked nice as well, his hair looked perfect, and he had on his best noble threads. He wasn't exactly sure where Constance's room was, so he just kept an eye out for any sign of her. Ah! Ferdinand! Constance called out, waving him over. Greetings. You look absolutely divine tonight. She laughed. I am so glad you made it, and right on time, might I add. Ah, there you are. I'm afraid I am not too familiar with the layout of Abyss. I would have been fashionably early if I had known where to go without your direction. He stopped in front of her. You are looking quite elegant yourself, Constance. I can tell you've put a lot of effort into your appearance. Aha, yes I did, thank you for noticing. Won't you come inside? She pushed the door open. Her room was decked out in rose petals and other romantic decorations. There was a table with a white cloth over it in the center, with 2 plates on it and a few candles. Dinner made by my dear friend Yuri just for the 2 of us to share. What do you think? Oh, my, he gazed around as he walked into her room. It is breathtakingly romantic in here. Did you set up the decorations all on your own? If I may say, you've really outdone yourself here. He stood near the table. I hear Yuri's a good cook. I am positive the meal will be absolutely delectable. He pulled out a chair for her. Ladies first. Oh, a gentleman! She exclaimed, sitting down in the chair and scooching in. What do you think? He made pheasant meat and asparagus. She smiled, picking up her fork. It smells incredible. I wager it tastes better than anything I have consumed in the dining hall in a while. He said eagerly, as he sat down across from her. He picked up his glass. Before we dine, I would like to offer up a toast. To our like-mindedness, exquisite tastes, and future ambitions. He touched his glass to hers, then had a sip before starting to eat. Magnificent toast. She smiled, and took a sip of her own drink. She set her glass down. Now, I need your opinion on something. She began to cut into her meat. Do you think that my new spell, the one that conjures up weapons, would be useful on the battlefield? She asked with a small frown. Because I was thinking about it, what happens if I create a weapon of mass destruction, and the enemy reaches it before one of us has the chance to? He started cutting into his meat as well, sitting up nice and straight, and not cutting too big of a bite from his meat. That is a matter I had not thought of when you first demonstrated the spell to me over tea. He thought for a moment. Maybe the spell will be most useful if cast from the back lines. Do not get me wrong, you are strong enough to be fighting on the front lines, but if we used your spell to supply our army from the back, the enemy wouldn't have the chance to get to it before we do. Ah. A master plan. She told him before taking a bite. I knew you would be the right person to ask. She smiled. Still, it could use some polishing. She looked at their steak knives. Even our utensils mock me. Oh, nonsense. Not just anyone is able to conjure weapons out of thin air. You are unique in that way. Don't let the cutlery deter you. It pales in comparison to your conjurings. He took a bite of his food, thoroughly enjoying it. She smiled. That is kind of you to say. She went on eating for a bit before saying, you know, Ferdinand, I really enjoy being in your company. Only a select few would say otherwise. He laughed softly, making sure there was no food in his mouth beforehand. You are nice company as well, Constance. Never a dull moment with you around, that's for sure. Thank you. Hey. Ferdinand, Constance swirled her finger around on the surface of the table. Do you think I would make a fine contender for a girlfriend? She eyed him. A contender? Constance, you are already first among the ranks. Any man would be the luckiest in the world to have you by their side. However, only a select few will ever have the privilege. Do you agree? He sipped his water. Ha. Precisely. She smiled. That is why I propose that you and I commence in a relationship of our very own. She took the last bite of her asparagus. He was in the middle of swallowing, but started choking after she made her proposal. He covered his face with his napkin, eventually clearing his throat. Pardon my poor manners. I am so very sorry. He took a deep breath, and then a refreshing sip of water. You mean for us to court one another? He asked. Excuse me. She frowned. That is not how one should react when presented with an opportunity of a lifetime. She said, yes. I do mean that. I never intended to make such an embarrassing blunder. Really, I am sorry you had to see that. I feel as unrefined as they come. He dabbed his cheek with his napkin, then set it back in his lap. It would be rude of me to refuse, would it not? Yes, it would. She smiled. But, again, do not feel forced. She shook her head. I just think a little school romance would do you some good. So, you are telling me it would be rude to refuse your proposal, yet not to feel forced. He paused, looking down at his food. A little school romance, you say? Now, what does that entail? He was hesitant to accept. Whatever you would like it to entail. She exclaimed, lurking around the corridors, sneaking in playful affection when nobody is looking. Meeting up in secret. She smiled. Your description of school romance does seem enticing. After all, it would add more flair to the drab repetitive nature of waking up every morning, attending class, fitting in some training, and then going to bed. He frowned, though. So? What say you? She raised her eyebrows, looking at him. I mean, we could always start right now, she offered. Constance, he set his fork down. I appreciate the great effort you have gone through to set up this dinner. And your enthusiasm for wanting a dreamy romance with me, I will admit, piques my interest. But for now, I think I have to respectfully decline. He swallowed, feeling a bit nervous about how she might react. It's not you, Constance. You are magnificent. In fact, you stand above a majority of the students at this school for many reasons. But, my affections lie elsewhere at the moment. He gave her a solemn look. Wha, she frowned. Ah. No. I understand, she nodded her head. If your heart lies with another woman, I could not steal you away from her. That would be absolutely uncouth. She stood up from her chair. If you please, could we still remain friends? She asked. Uncouth indeed. He stood up as well. But, like you said, I have no intention of breaking off my friendship with you. By the look on his face, it was obvious that he felt bad about declining her offer. But who is to say that we still cannot conquer the highest peaks as friends? He smiled. Right. She nodded. Thank you for joining me for dinner tonight. She bent forward and blew out the candles. You must give your thanks to Yuri if you see him. I had a delightful time. And we shall both part ways tonight with no hard feelings, correct? He gave her a polite bow. I will make sure to let Yuri know about my 5-star review next we meet. But really thank you for the dinner invitation. Shall we do this again sometime? Yes. We shall. She nodded her head. Good night, dear Ferdinand. Let us pray we both fare well off in the battle tomorrow. She closed the door behind him, and threw herself onto her bed, kicking her feet and pounding on her pillow angrily like a toddler. Good night, dear Constance. I hope the night treats you well. He gave her a charming smile before leaving the room, but his smile turned into a frown as he thought about how much he probably hurt her feelings. He left Abyss, thinking about the conversation they just had. Constance decided she would have to talk to Yuri about it, but only after she got her tantrum out of the way. The sun had gone down. Marianne entered the infirmary. Sylvain. Her voice was set and quiet, almost not even there at all. Sylvain was asleep. He seemed to be in a pretty deep sleep, by the looks of it. On his bedside, there was a tray with some water and medicine on it. He was supposed to take the medicine before he went to sleep, but he had forgotten. He didn't hear Marianne. Marianne noticed the medicine, and gently shook his shoulder. Sylvain. She said again, please, wake up. She kept her voice quiet, though it wasn't very hard for her to do. He groaned, then eventually opened his eyes. He didn't expect to see Marianne even though Dorothea said she would be stopping by. Marianne. He rubbed his eyes and sat up a little straighter. I'm awake. I'm awake, he yawned. Hello. She acted like she wasn't even coming in to chat in the first place. I was walking by and noticed that you hadn't taken your medication. Oh, right. I suppose I fell asleep before I could take it on schedule. It's supposed to help with my headache. He took the medicine from the tray and swallowed it with some water. Ugh. Bitter. He took another sip to wash it down, then set his cup back on the table. Dorothea said you might come around. She did? Right. Yes. Well, she looked at the door. I won't waste any more of your time. I just wanted you to get well soon, so. I'll be leaving now. What? No, you're not wasting my time. Did you want to have a chat? Or something? He asked, starting to wake up a little more. Honestly, if you didn't wake me up, I would have forgotten my medicine. She shook her head. No. I just came to check on you. She lied. It's late. You should be getting rest. She slowly backed up. No, Marianne. Dorothea said you wanted to talk to me, so. I really want to hear what you have to say. I promise, I want to talk to you. I want you to stay, you're not wasting my time, okay? His voice still sounded a little tired. Well, okay then. She moved back over and sat down beside his bed. She looked at him, and then gently rubbed her wrist. I don't want to be insensitive. You? Insensitive? Please, Marianne. You could never. You're as gentle as a foal. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Go on. He said, gently. I just want to know if you regret it. She paused, attempting to, take your own life. Do you not wish that you were successful? She avoided his eyes. Do you wish you could go back to those moments where you were sure that your eyes were never to open again? Life is so hard. It's cruel. But death? It's easy. It's welcoming and easy. There are no worries in death. His mouth opened a tiny bit as she was speaking, like he was going to give an answer, but was very unsure about it. He stared at his broken arm, a sad, contemplative look on his face. Her words definitely made their impact. He took a deep breath. It's hard to say. He didn't answer her for a while. I didn't think hard enough about it. I didn't know how I could possibly enjoy living anymore. I really thought it worked, but I woke up here. And I wondered why I was here and not. I don't know, hell. He shrugged. To be honest, I don't even remember the fall. But I do remember standing on the ledge of the monastery, thinking about how great it would be to release all of my burdens at once, you know? It felt good to know I could finally be free of all of this pressure. So? Now that you're back, do you wish to do it again? She asked, gripping her wrist tighter. To be free once more? She lowered her voice. I want to be free, but I think there are different ways to be free. He gave her a sad stare. Dying? I don't know. I always assumed the world would be better off without me. It probably would. But there are people here who would be upset to lose me. And I only know that because I've almost died. Twice. He paused. I think instead of trying to kill myself, next time I'm feeling worthless I'll just find the people who care about me to convince me otherwise. So, no. I don't wish to do it again. Ah, okay. She said with a small nod. I don't. I can't see myself ever feeling that way. She stood back up. Thank you for your time, she said quietly, seeming eager to leave. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to get her to stay. "Don't go, please." "I'm not sure I get what you mean by that," he said. I just mean," she spoke softly, "that I still want to go." Her bottom lip quivered slightly. "Even having people here who care for me," she paused, "they will all be better off if I am gone." "Marianne," he shook his head, then upturned his hand toward her as he spoke. "Don't. I know I probably sound like a hypocrite since I just, well, you know, but, don't." He said, "When I awoke, I had Felix here waiting for me. He literally lost his mind when he heard about what I did. And I realized that, if I ended up dead, it would end up hurting a lot more people than just me. So, don't do it. Please." "But," she frowned. Yes. I suppose you're right. Hilda speaks to me of the day she found me almost every time I see her. And Ignatz," she trailed off, covering her mouth with her hand. "See? You've got yourself some real nice friends. They care about you. A lot. We may not be too close, Marianne, but I can at least tell that you're loved by a lot of people." He paused, and decided to try and distract her from her dark thoughts as best as he could. "So, do you like Ignatz, or?" She looked up at him, surprised by his sudden change of tone. "What?" Ignatz is," she became embarrassed and looked away. "He is my significant other, if you will," she said. "Nice. He's a good guy. You both deserve each other. Now, think about how sad he would be if he lost you. Think of the future you'd be missing out on. I'm sure he wants to live to a ripe old age with you. So you can't go cutting things short, okay?" His tone didn't match the set expression on his face. She blinked a few times, looking at him once more. "Sylvian, thank you." She nodded her head. "I will take the things you've said today to heart," she told him. "Please. I pray that you do not get caught up in tomorrow's battle. Yeah, if that happens, I'm pretty much done for. I think I'll be safe if I just hide out in here." He looked out the window, then back at Marianne. "But you're welcome. I'm not usually so good at heart-to-hearts. I'm glad I could help." She didn't smile, she just looked at him for a few moments before turning and exiting the infirmary. Something told her to turn back to stay and talk with him until he fell back asleep. But she didn't. See ya, he watched her leave, again, feeling pretty sad as a result of what he just talked about. He didn't cry this time, but he did close his eyes and let out a huge sigh, still feeling conflicted. Chapter 90, Battle in Ordalia Territory. The next morning came. Today was the day that Shahid had planned to attack. Byleth was nowhere to be found. Everyone else was ready for battle though. Lawrence approached Claude as the group was making preparations. "Pardon me, but I have been waiting for further instruction. I assumed the Almiran forces would have attacked us by now." He asked, "What might be causing such a delay?" I have no clue," Claude said, shaking his head. He had his eyes set on the horizon. "I'm being honest. I have absolutely no idea what's going on." "You? Clueless?" "Absurd," Lawrence replied. "You're the master tactician. Whenever I need an answer, whenever anyone needs an answer, they put their utmost faith in you. You really have no postulation? No insight? Okay, how about you complain some more, Lawrence?" "Huh? 'Cause we'd all love to hear it." Claude seemed super stressed. He sighed, looking away from Lawrence. "Where are you, Shahid?" he mumbled. "Humph. Pardon me," Lawrence retorted, sighing. He distanced himself from Claude so that they wouldn't get into an argument, but that didn't stop him from continually glancing back at him from over his shoulder. Someone could be seen scaling the foothills that led to the monastery. There. Right there." Claude pointed. "What's that?" He squinted in an attempt to get a better look. The female servant from before, Shahid's retainer, was walking by herself. She was carrying an axe over her shoulder, but had no intention of attacking anyone. She seemed exhausted, like she had been traveling all day. Claude aimed his bow at her, but didn't shoot any arrows. He beckoned for Lawrence to follow, and went to meet her at the gate. "What's going on?" The servant walked through the gate and met up with Claude, looking a bit worried that he might attack her. She said, "I'm only a messenger, I swear." "But Prince Shahid has called off the attack. I don't know what made him change his mind, but he hasn't even left Almira." What? Are you serious? Claude lowered his bow. "Why? Do you have a reason for this?" he asked, shaking his head. "Is this a trick?" "Not that I'm aware of. He sent me here to bring you the news instead of coming here himself. He wanted me to let you know that he has no interest in taking the alliance from you anymore. Apparently, he has something else he's content with. I don't know if I believe him myself, but he's not here. And if I had come leading the Almiran army, you'd see it." "Wow. Okay. This is really weird," Claude said with a small frown. "Thanks for the notice, I guess." He looked really confused. "I'm sorry for all the stress he's caused you." "Really? Good luck to you all." She turned and left back the way she came from. Lawrence exchanged glances with Claude. How perplexing. "So, we are not expecting an Almiran invasion." He looked around. "Where is the professor?" Claude watched the servant leave, then turned his attention back to Lawrence. "Dead." He said it more as a question than anything. "Okay, I don't even think I need to lie about this anymore. She's in the dungeons," he said, pointing his thumb behind him. "The dun dash? What?" Lawrence was so baffled by Claude's answer that he couldn't even finish his initial sentence. "What is she doing in a foul place like that while we have a potentially dangerous situation to deal with? Someone as powerful as her would be an asset. It's a long story. I had a plan." Claude paused. "Just come with me." He began leading the way through Gareg Mach, until they went down some steps and reached the dungeons. Byleth was in one of the cells, shaking at the bars. "Claude, let me out," she insisted at the sight of him. Claude unlocked the cell and let her out. Byleth shot Claude an authoritative glare. "You will explain yourself to me when all of this is through." She turned back to face Lawrence, noticing he had come along. "Was there not a battle today?" "Apparently not," replied Lawrence, unable to keep himself from looking around. He was distracted by how musty the environment was. "It appears we have been misled." Claude sighed. "I'm just so confused by Shahid. Why did he change his mind so suddenly? It doesn't make sense." Byleth frowned. There was much she couldn't tell him. "As long as what the servant said was true, then we can carry on with our day." She gave Claude a look. "You and I both know Shahid won't hurt us as long as I'm here." Claude frowned, an expression of pain flashing across his face for a brief moment. "Come on, let's go back to the surface." He led the small group back up to the other students. Prince Shahid hoped that, since he didn't attack, Byleth would keep her word. Now all he could do was wait until the end of term. Although Shahid didn't attack, there was some commotion from near the gates. A villager ran into the monastery. "Help! Somebody help!" "Shoot!" Just when we were in the clear, Claude and Byleth ran to the gates. "What's the matter?" Claude asked nervously, wondering if Shahid was on his way after all. "Please, you have to help. I ran all the way to the monastery from my hometown in Ordalaya territory. My village is under attack." She caught her breath. "We need help as soon as possible. The mages, they're taking the people from our village one by one. By the time we get there, I fear it will already be too late." "Mages? Oh no." Claude looked to all the students who were stationed for battle, which was pretty much everyone besides Sylvian and Didu. "Everyone. Come. We head to Ordalaya territory to help this person's village." Mostly everyone was able to go. "Luckily, we were already prepared to deal with an attack today," Lawrence declared. "It is my duty to assist the common folk." He saddled up at once. Dmitri was in the middle of bringing some soup to Didu. He had to rush in order to get ready for the fight. Ferdinand was looking in his dictionary, but had to shut it in order to prepare for the battle. Everyone hurried out the gates, and made their way toward Ordalaya territory. Happy was riding her horse between Balthus and Yuri. Petra walked with Ferdinand. Ingrid and Felix marched side by side. Also Bernadetta was not there. Nobody noticed she wasn't there. By the time they arrived, the village was completely overrun. There were mysterious soldiers everywhere, dragging villagers out of their houses against their will. One of them spotted the group. "We're being pursued. Take as many villagers as you can and get out of here." They started retreating, dragging innocents with them. Casper gasped. "Oh no you don't." He charged toward them, completely defenseless. "Casper! Don't!" Dorothea yelled, running in after him. Once the two of them ran in, everyone followed close after. "I'm not letting you get away with this." Casper ran through and tackled one of the mages, who cast dark magic at him to try and get him off. He started punching the mage with his gauntlets on, attempting to land a lethal blow. Linhard caught up with Dorothea, out of breath even though it wasn't that far of a run. "He's going to get himself killed. We have to stop him." Dorothea cast fire magic at the mage Casper was battling. "Casper! Stop this! You're being too reckless." Dorothea got bowled over by one of the dark mages. "Dorothea!" Ingrid shouted from where she was fighting with Dimitri and Felix. She looked conflicted. She wanted to help Dorothea, but Felix and Dimitri were overcome with mages as well. Linhard gasped, shouting almost in time with Ingrid. "Dorothea!" He ran to her side and used some healing magic on her so that she might be able to get back up. Casper was taking on way too many at once, but he actually seemed to be handling them pretty well. Linhard tried to help Dorothea up. "Are you okay?" Dorothea grabbed onto Linhard's arm as she stood up. "Ow, thanks Linear." She groaned. "I'm alright, come on Casper needs our help." She coughed. Casper was starting to get overwhelmed. Two mages grabbed into his arms to restrain him, and they were holding him tight as he struggled. "Hey, let me go. Let go of me. RRGH. He struggled, but couldn't break free. There was a mage holding a devil axe approaching him. Linhard noticed. "Dorothea, he's in danger." He got a little closer and tried using some wind magic to blow the approaching menace off course, but instead of being incapacitated, the mage started heading for Linhard instead. Dorothea watched in horror as the mage started closing in on Linhard. Instead of helping Casper, Dorothea used aura on the mage going for Linhard. "No. Please. No." Linhard fell as he was being chased, backing up with his hands and feet from the ground. He shielded his face just as the mage was about to strike him, but luckily Dorothea rescued him just in time. He sighed with relief, but knew there wasn't time to rest because Casper was still restrained. Linhard met back up with Dorothea. "You really saved me there. But I'll thank you for it later after we get Casper out of there." "Don't mention it Lin help me." She didn't want to risk hitting Casper with magic, so she ran up to one of them and tried punching them in the nose. I don't know if I can take any of them down," Linhard said, following Dorothea. He wouldn't get close to any of the mages. Casper squirmed. "The beast is coming. Look out!" he shouted. A massive boulder was soaring straight for them. The mages dropped him, leaving him only a few seconds to get away from the rock. Dorothea jumped out of the way before the boulder could hit them, but she landed straight on top of Casper on the way down. Linhard dropped down and covered his head, but a bunch of rock chunks came flying at him, giving him some minor injuries. Casper pushed Dorothea off after the boulder hit. She shielded him from the debris, so he was okay. "Thanks. I could have fought my way out of that eventually, but at least I'm not in danger anymore. We gotta do something about this beast, though." The demonic beast grabbed a villager and ate him. It happened right in front of Linhard, who fainted from the sight. The beast immediately ran at Linhard and picked him up, opening its jaws. "Lin!" Dorothea screamed. "Casper! Help me! I don't know what to do." Dorothea was freaking out. She looked at the demonic beast. Drop it. Drop it." She pointed to the ground. Linhard was just laying limp in its claws. The beast wasn't like a puppy, so it didn't obey Dorothea's commands. Casper ran right up to it and gave it a big punch, but it did nothing but draw the beast's attention. "Drop my friend." He started pounding on the beast, but the beast just lifted Casper into the air as well. He screamed. Whoa. Help, I don't wanna be beast food. He struggled. Dorothea took a deep breath, and cast Anya's arrow at the beast, hoping it might be enough to make it drop them. The arrow hit the beast's arm, making it drop Casper. He fell hard onto the ground, letting out a big huff. It's okay. I'm okay. He stood up, then fell back a little. It's still got Linhard. The beast opened its mouth and was about to bite into Linhard, but he woke up. He screamed in terror, then cast magic into the beast's mouth, which caused weird slime to spray back at him before he fell. He gagged as he started trying to rub all the slime away. Dorothea was at Linhard's side in an instant. Are you all right? She exclaimed, helping him wipe away the goo. No. I was almost eaten by a demonic beast. I can't, ugh, Dorothea, I think I'm going to be sick. Linhard covered his mouth. The demonic beast was laying on the ground. Casper ran up to it and stabbed it through the eye with his gauntlets, then raked its underbelly with the blades sticking out of them. Booyah! The beast lie still. SHH, it's okay, Lin. Deep breaths in, okay? You're not gonna be sick. Dorothea rubbed his back, trying to get him to calm down. Linhard tried to calm down, and the color was gradually returning to his face. Meanwhile, Dimitri was fighting back-to-back with Felix, as they were surrounded by a circle of mages. He took one of them out, then dodged a blast of fire magic, which set some shrubs on fire. He looked at Ingrid, who ended up being closest to the fire. Stay clear of the flames. Ingrid listened to Dimitri, and stepped a bit towards the right, so her clothing wouldn't catch fire. Felix narrowed his eyes. Dimitri, give me your lance, he said. Just for a moment I need more range. My lance? But that will leave me defenseless. Are you sure this will work? Dimitri took out a mage before giving his lance to Felix, wondering what he had in mind. He checked Ingrid over his shoulder to make sure she was okay first. The flames were starting to spread. Felix snatched Dimitri's lance and stabbed at the mages that were out of his reach, clearing out 3 that were on his side. He tossed it back to Dimitri when he was finished. Dimitri caught his lance after Felix threw it back to him. Impressive. That should give us the opening we dash. He stopped talking as another demonic beast suddenly tore through the town and started charging straight for Ingrid. Ingrid. He sprinted toward her, pushing her out of the way as the demonic beast came crashing forward. The area where they were fighting was atop a vast hill, so when he pushed Ingrid, he fell with her down the hill. It was a very rough fall. Ingrid slammed her back hard into a tree on her way down and was barely conscious by the time they reached the bottom. She groaned, opening her eyes and trying to sit up. Everything was blurry. Prince Dimitri, she mumbled. Dimitri crashed down the slope, his body colliding hard with obstacles as he fell. He rolled through a thicket on the way down, which tore his clothes and left him with a bunch of scratches. He landed beside Ingrid, groaning as well, spitting out dirt. Engdesh, he coughed. Ingrid, he crawled over to her. The fire was burning bright at the top of the hill. Ingrid coughed a little. Are you all right? She asked. I see, can't he get up? Dimitri gently propped her up, holding her in his arms. I didn't realize it was so steep. I'm sorry. If you had been standing there for just a second longer, you'd be dead. He looked up at the top of the hill, where the fire was starting to spread downward. He looked back at Ingrid. She winced. Ak, you saved my life. For that I am grateful, but we have no time to rest. We need to help. She tried to get up again, but couldn't. I think I've broken a few ribs. Dimitri kept her supported. You'll be okay. Don't strain yourself. We have to get you to a medic. The next time he looked up, the fire was rapidly spreading towards them. Ingrid, we don't have time to stand around. You can't get up, can you? He frantically looked around, but ended up scooping her in his arms instead, carrying her. He started running from the fire, but it was catching up with him fast. Ingrid clung to him tightly, gasping in pain with just about every step Dimitri took. Dimitri! Felix's voice called in the distance, but he was nowhere to be seen. It sounded like it came from within the flames. The Flame Emperor came up from behind Felix in the fire. "Trying to save your friends, are you?" She swung at Felix with her axe. Felix wasn't ready for that at all. He was struck right across the collarbone. He shouted in pain and stumbled backwards, drawing his sword. The Flame Emperor slowly closed in on Felix. The flames were doing nothing to harm them in any way. "Do not waste your efforts. Shall I let the flames drag you to your death, or would you like me to finish you off quickly?" Felix, despite his gushing wound, shouted and charged at the Flame Emperor, ready to strike. Pitiful. The Flame Emperor struck at Felix as soon as he charged, hoping to kill him. Felix parried the blow, and stumbled back slightly. He took a minute to breathe before charging at them again. Weak. The Flame Emperor didn't even flinch from his parry. They kept slowly walking toward him, and swung at him once more to get him to give up. Felix was hit badly in the leg, but he didn't back down. "Die," he shouted, stabbing at the Flame Emperor's mask. Not wanting to take the risk, the Flame Emperor had to jump back in order to preserve their identity. Quickly, they started retreating. Felix groaned in pain, falling down onto one knee. He laid flat on his back, pressing onto his neck wound to try and stop the blood flow. Annette luckily found him lying there, and tried to staunch the blood flow herself. As the fire blazed, Dmitri kept running, speaking although he was out of breath. "Hold on, Ingrid. I know this must be painful, but hold on." He started coughing as the flames eventually caught up, circling them. It was almost unnatural how the fire was moving so intricately to trap them. Ingrid held on tighter. "The fire," she croaked. Dmitri didn't know where to go. "No, there's no making it out of here, damn." He frantically looked for even the smallest escape route. Ingrid coughed. "Leave me, get yourself out." Dmitri didn't have a clue about what was going on with Felix. He was trapped with Ingrid, unable to escape. "Leave you? No. I could never. We're going to make it out of here." He saw an opening, but as soon as he tried to escape, a big fireball came blazing toward him. He quickly dodged, holding tightly to Ingrid. What was that? A masked dark mage walked out of the flames. Ingrid cried out in pain. Dmitri, please, ah. I feel like I'm going to pass out," she stuttered. Dmitri was coughing from the smoke. "I won't let you down, Ingrid. I won't." He backed up as the mage drew nearer. "I promise we'll make it out of this alive." Ingrid wasn't replying. Her grip weakened. Claude shouted, "Hey! Dmitri! Get out of there!" He shot an arrow at the mage. The mage who was cornering them got shot in the thigh. They let out a growl, ripping the arrow out before retreating as well. Dmitri looked up. "Claude! Thank you." As soon as the mage disappeared, the fire immediately extinguished. "Oh," he looked down at Ingrid, releasing a breath of relief. "Are you all right?" Claude nodded. "Don't mention it, they're retreating. We need to get back to the monastery. Lysithea is seriously hurt. So is Felix," he called. Ingrid didn't answer Dmitri's question. She weakly mumbled, "Felix. Felix?" Where Dmitri turned his head and saw him at the foot of the hill, gasping when he noticed how severe his wound was. "No, why did he chase after us? How did he dash?" He shook his head. "You're right. We have to go. Now." He carried Ingrid back, holding her close the whole way. Some medics were able to staunch the blood flow from Felix's wound for the trip back, but couldn't completely stop it. Lysithea's wound was borderline lethal. She had been scratched along the stomach by a demonic beast, and its jaws almost ripped her apart. The group hurried back to the monastery. Check the description for the links to the author.